What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Today, I have a special guest coming from Corpus Christi, Texas. One of my clients for Junk Academy, actually. His name's Brian Gonzales. This guy's absolutely killing the game, getting amazing results, really within the first year of junk removal and owning a service-based business. So super glad to have him here. Welcome, man.
Man, how did we get here, Kyle?
I know, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. I mean, I was just humble for the opportunity that you gave me coming down here. You gave me the call. You said, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And you and I have talked about this before. Like, man, me getting in front of the cameras, all those kind of things, has always been kind of worrisome for me a little bit. But you've given so much to me and my family, and our business. I couldn't say no. So
Yeah.
here I am.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
So let's dive deep into that. What kind of you just said there. So social media, obviously, a ton of people out there, they don't want to get in front of the camera, that sort of thing. So are you kind of getting to that point where you want to get in front of the camera more for your businesses and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I see the impact that it has, right? And so if I'm going to sit here and stay behind the curtains in a sense, I'm not ever going to expose the business to the aspect to the personal aspect, I guess, that I'm trying to get to, and because we are a service-based organization, and we do pride ourselves on that. We are very personal with our customers. We try to do everything we possibly can to get them the service that they need. So when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, if they know me before we actually meet, sometimes that will help us kind of get those customers that we're looking for.
I love it, man. Well, tell everybody a little bit, what you do right now, kind of your backstory, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah. No. So, turned 17, joined the military right off the bat. I had to have my mom sign the papers, and she was very upset at that time. My older brother had already signed the contract to get in. So now she had her second son going in, and so she just wasn't very happy with me doing that. So spent the last 22 years serving my country with the Army National Guard there in Texas. 3 overseas deployments, multiple disc operations, basically just helping the home front there in Texas with, any sort of tropical storms, hurricanes, any sort of border protection, stuff like that. So just kind of just been doing that the last 22 years. And then when it came to my last overseas deployment, I had, spent a little bit of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that at some point I wanted an exit plan out of the military, but I knew myself that if I just left the military, that I was just going to not be happy and be very disappointed in making that decision too early. So started doing some research and figuring out, like, what could I do with all my extra time. And so I had a friend, Jeremy. He works for Dumpster Rental Systems, and I seen him on social media, and he was just killing it. He had his own business. He was working with the software and building that organization up. And I was just like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And so he kind of talked me into, the business part of that. So then I started leaning more towards the dumpster rentals, right? So I spent that whole year overseas just kind of figuring out how I was going to finance this thing, how I was going to start, what I wanted to look like, kind of project out the future. Because for me, it's always about trying to plan ahead of time, trying to always be 10 steps ahead, because that's just how we've always been built in the military to do, right? And so when I got back overseas, I just dumped all that extra cash flow that I had from deployments and savings, and I started getting all the equipment. And then I waited, because at that time COVID was still happening. The price of steel was crazy. Getting equipment was hard, all that kind of stuff. So I waited, probably about 3 or 4 months before I started getting my vehicles and then the trucks and stuff like that. So I started out with just one trailer and 3 dumpsters. And in the beginning, like the first 4 months before I started really kind of freaking out about where I was at, because I was like, man, I just invested my life savings into this thing and it's not working, right? And so, at that point, I was like, I got to figure something out. And so I just started, like everything else today, you go to YouTube to start trying to research stuff, learn stuff. What is everybody else doing? And then lo and behold, I ran into a podcast with you and Ryan in there, right? And then I see you, 22-year-old young man, doing very well. And I'm here. I'm 39 years old. I have a lot of leadership experience. I've been through a lot of things in life, and why couldn't I figure it out? So that's when I had reached out to you, and then basically just kind of went back and forth trying to figure out whether I wanted to do this or not, because I've just always been kind of wary of these programs that you pay into and then you don't get
Right.
nothing back out of it, because I've seen real estate people do it. I've had
I've been
friends that have done it,
scammed.
and they didn't work out for them, and so I didn't want that to happen. But you assured me, this program was going to work, do all those things, and at that point I was too far in. It was either do it or just continue down the path I was in, which was not even a path at all. And so joined the program after the first month. I wasn't investing time in it. I was using every excuse that I possibly could, because I was kind of going through the transition of retirement. And then, also just, I got a family, I got 5 kids, I had a lot of stuff going on. So just every excuse that I could use on not really investing my time into the program. So that month came up, and you kind of gave me the call to kind of give me a sanity check, right? And
Hey, your second payment's due.
yeah. And I was like, hey man, this ain't working out. Like, I really was worried at the point, because I had already invested all the money in the equipment to get started. And then I had basically gave the last bit that I had going, and I wasn't bringing in any money. So it was a problem that I had. And then, so you had what I call a come to Jesus meeting, and basically tore into my butt, right? And at that time, I could have used that as, let my ego get the best of me, right? And been like, man, who is this 20-year-old kid telling me that I'm not investing my time and this and that and all this other things, right? And I stepped back, because, I think much of my military career, I was like that in the beginning years, but as you kind of go through, you start figuring out that the folks that are under you a lot of the times are a lot smarter than you, and in a sense that you need that advice and stuff like that. So I stepped back and said, all right, he knows something, because he's in his position, I'm in mine. And then you assured me that you were going to dedicate your time to make sure that we got back on track, right? Because you pointed out a few things like, hey, you're not even halfway through the program. You've only been on one call, like all these other things. I hear all these other people, that were discouraging, because they're having like a 20K month or a 30K month. And I'm like, and they're talking about having bad months. And I'm like, bad month? Like, I hadn't even made that in 4 months. What do you mean? And so yeah, I think after that, that investment into the program, actually getting back into it, because I mean, it's like anything else. If you don't put the time and effort into those things, like, they're not going to work, And for me, I think it was just I was at a different place in my life at that time, to where I was looking at retirement, coasting, and I didn't really want to start putting all that time into it. But you kind of pushed me to go into that thing. And then, after that first month, basically paid for the program. And then we've just kind of progressed since then, and we continue to progress. Like,
And this was in November, or?
This was December that we started the program. And then January, we hit our first, 10K month. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been going up since then.
I remember the exact conversation that you're talking about, where I think maybe your invoice came up, or I texted you and I was like, hey man, your payment's due. And you definitely caught me on the wrong day, because I remember how pissed off I was, which usually I'm not the guy who'd be like, you weren't doing this and this and this. Like, usually I'm not going to be that guy, but I was just so fed up with, like, people are like, oh yeah, I would love to do this, but I need a payment plan, right? And then at the time I didn't know any better. I give somebody a payment plan. Second month comes around, they didn't do anything because their back wasn't up against the wall. And then next thing you know, it was like, I wasn't getting the rest of those sales, So it was like 2 maybe that day, and I ended up talking to you, and, here we are. I mean, imagine if, I would say 99% of the people out there probably would have been like, F you, who's this kid? Kind of like what you were saying,
Yeah, and I was for a moment,
Yeah. And then you got off the call. Right. But
Yeah.
do you ever think about like where you would be at today, maybe if we like part ways right then and there?
I mean, I don't think that I'd be in the position I'm in right now. I think there's a lot of things that kind of fell into place when they did. I'm thankful for that opportunity. I'm thankful you had that bad day.
Hmm.
I think that I'm a very I think spiritual person, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. And you were having that bad day, and I was on the other side of that, and I needed that, right?
Right.
And for me, I just know that through experience and stuff like that, that yeah, I'm that tough love type of person, right?
Yeah.
Not don't listen so much of the bark, but listen to the message and the things, right? And you were right about everything, right? I hadn't invested time in it. I hadn't gone on the calls like I should have and done those things. And so if I wasn't doing those things, then why was I going to expect anything
Hmm.
different than where I was before I started?
If you don't change anything, nothing changes.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
expect anything to change.
yeah,
So at 17 years old, you went in the military, correct?
yep.
At 17 years old, what made you even want to go in the military? And by the way, I appreciate your service.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. I come from a very small town. So got born and raised in Port O'Connor, Texas, Port Lavaca. I mean, there's you go out there if you want to go fishing, best place in the world to go fishing, right there. But for me, it was either stay there and work at one of the plants, or do nothing with my life, because I mean that's really in a big thing. Well, that's all there was for us to do. But I always knew that I wanted to be a soldier. I always knew I wanted to serve. And so when it came the time, I mean, it literally, I turned 17 the month later, I signed, right? And because I knew that that's what I wanted to do, at least for the beginning of my life. And uh, I wasn't really a good kid growing up. I had a lot of issues and problems growing up. I was kind of the problem child in the family, the middle child, right? The one that seeks, attention and everything like that. But ultimately for me, I knew that I needed a little bit of structure. So I needed that discipline, and that was the choice that I made at the time.
So right now, can you get in at 17 or is it 18?
No, you could. Well, from my understanding, it's been a while, but yes,
Um,
you can still get in 17, but you have to have a parent sign for you,
okay.
and
Okay.
I don't think that's changed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you joined the military. What did that process look like when you first started? Isn't there like a boot camp right when you join?
Yeah. So I, it's funny thing is, coming from a small town, we don't get to see a lot of stuff, right? So the recruiter sold me on, hey, we have our big bonuses for our field artillery. So you get to go blow stuff up, and, we're going to pay you for it, and we're going to feed you and do all this stuff. And like for me, growing up and not, like a family that didn't really have a lot, that sounded great. You're going to pay me, and I'm going to get to go blow stuff up. 17 years old, great. And you're going to give me a bonus? Let's do it. So, so I joined the field artillery, which is combat arms. And then, went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which I don't recommend for you to go to. But if you do need to get, uh, humbled, or you need some sort of humbling experience, go there. But no, I had a great experience there. I had great drill sergeants that, for me, I think I always felt that I was less than really was, right? And I've always been placed with people like yourself, those drill sergeants that seen more in me than I seen in myself, right? And so I got pushed and came out of there really, really on top of my game. Started going to school, started doing all those things when I got back, and then 2000. Well, at the time I had signed, it was 2001. So that's really when everything started hitting off in the wars and stuff like that, right? So by 2005, I was out the door in my first deployment, right? Um, so it happened really fast, and just kind of stayed busy from 2005 to 2011, just doing some sort of operation or overseas trip or something going on. So I was kind of full time during that whole time.
So they said that you got to blow stuff up and they made it sound real sexy. Was it that sexy whenever you got there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was.
what kind of stuff were you guys doing, or what kind of guns were you guys shooting? That sort of thing.
So at the time we had the M109s, right, which was it looks like a tank, but it's it's a track vehicle, so it's got those the wheels and stuff. And then basically the 155, which is the biggest howitzer that they had, that's on the ground, right. Um, so yeah, nothing like it in the world. If you ever have the opportunity to go out to one of the gun lines and see that stuff, like it, it'll make your hair stick up on your arms, man. It's always great, man, and it never changed throughout the whole 22 years. Every time you heard that gunfire, it was something else, right? So, but yeah, it was a great experience. It definitely was.
That's cool, man. So I guess to dive into the boot camp side of stuff, like did you go in there and you weren't really in shape, or were you pretty fit going in there, and what did that boot camp look like?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but no, I mean, I was pretty athletic, right? My mom, because I was the trouble kid, she made sure I stayed in sports. So did either, football, baseball, track, something. I just stayed active throughout all my years. So when going into there, I was like 124 pounds or something like that when I graduated from high school. And then, so I was pretty fit, not maybe strength wise, I wasn't, quite there, but by the end of it, I mean, I was maxing out all the physical fitness tests and stuff like that.
And what was that, like push-ups, pull-ups?
Yeah, at that time it was just push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2 mile run. So now they've changed the fitness test. It's all different now. So
Is it harder?
Um, I wouldn't say it's harder, but I think it just it well, yeah, it is harder. I would say it's harder
Yeah.
because for what was it, about 18 years I could roll out of bed and I could do the push-ups and sit-ups and I could go run the 2 miles and I'd be fine, right? Didn't really have to lead up to those things. Now the new physical fitness tests, like they got deadlift, they got a ball throw, they got a sprint drag carry, like they did have a leg tuck, but which in the beginning that was pretty hard. It was like a combination of a pull up slash bring your knees up to your
Yeah,
things.
those
So
suck.
yeah, and but they changed it now because when they finalized everything, they just kind of looked at the numbers across the thing, and we weren't ready for it, I guess. So,
Right.
So they changed it, but
Do you know the percentage of people who actually make it all the way through?
I think the Army does a very good job of kind of screening out everybody before they go there. So before they actually even step foot into the basic training, they won't even let you go if you're overweight or you can't meet the minimums or stuff like that. Well, that's how it used to be. I don't know how it is now because things have changed over time. But yeah, I mean now, but I would say about 90 to 95% of people will make it through once they get to the first step, and the ones that don't,
Right.
it's because they get injured or something, right? But they always find ways to get it done. And when you got hundreds of people surrounded around you, they're not letting you quit. Nobody's letting you quit. Everyone works together, and that's the beauty of the being in the military and stuff like that, just that camaraderie and stuff.
So when you get there, they look at your size and they're like, they want to build you up, make you more muscular, maybe gain more weight if you're a smaller guy. Don't they put you on meal plans and tell you what to eat and stuff like that?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, so yeah, if you aren't at an acceptable weight, because there is like overweight and then there is below weight, right? So they'll take a special interest in making you eat and stuff like that. But the Army is not about making you big. It's just making you fit, right? More endurance based stuff than I need the guys with the big arms and big
Hmm.
backs and big legs, because those guys really are more challenged than like you and like you are right there. I mean,
Yeah,
because you're more the Army way of life, because you just got to be a little bit more flexible with things.
right.
So,
You got to be able to run.
yeah, you definitely got to be able to run.
So going back, I guess, a little bit deeper into your story, whenever you were, trying to figure out what that next step was, you said that you were overseas when you were making the decision of, hey, I want to start potentially a dumpster company. Where were you at overseas?
I was in Egypt at the
Okay.
time. That was my last deployment. And kind of wrapped up as far as where I finally decided, yeah, I needed to find something to do. So I spent that year basically figuring out what I was going to do when I grew up, right? So, but yeah, I mean, so yeah, I was there in Egypt. I served as the command sergeant major there for the Field Artillery Battalion that we took over there first in the 133rd out of Houston, Texas, and peacekeeping mission. If you don't know what we're doing there in Egypt, and basically all we're doing is just doing observation there. So most of the peacekeeping missions, the National Guard traditionally will do. So the active duty can do the other missions. But yeah, definitely a good time in my life because it was like a good humbling experience for me because I'd spent 20 plus years serving my country, and to be able to be the senior enlisted advisor there to the commander that oversaw that mission, it was humbling for me, and got to meet a lot of good people. There was multiple countries there, not just us, that all kind of worked together to keep the peace over there. So, but yeah, no, I was yeah. The hardest part about deployments and serving and doing all that stuff is the time it takes away from your family and friends. I had just had another child, and at that time it was like, man, I'm missing everything. Right? I had 5 kids, and two of the older ones were ready out of the house, and then the three I was missing most of their years, and that's kind of what helped me decide like this is good, but I need to find something else.
Right. Makes an amazing story.
Yeah.
So did you ever go see the pyramids in Egypt?
Well, funny thing is, so those missions are kind of known for being able to go do those, but COVID happened. So we lived in a bubble, and they didn't allow us to do anything the entire deployment. So we were just mission focused there, and that was it. So yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to go see those.
I would love to go there and just see what it, looks like.
Yeah,
And
definitely. So I would definitely tell you to go there. We did have a private beach there on the base. The water is crystal clear. It's nice. Um, some of the best scuba diving that goes on over there. We just couldn't experience those things. Traditionally, those missions allow those things, but not for us. So we just the COVID stopped us from doing everything.
okay.
So
Cool, man. So you get out of the military, you're getting into the dumpster business, we'll say. How much money did you actually spend to start that business? And did you get a loan, or was it all liquid cash that you had saved up?
it was a mixture of both. I knew that I didn't want to spend all my cash because I needed to have some sort of operating cash flow in there because I still didn't know what I didn't know yet in the business. So financed some, paid some other, and then just kind of started from there. But everything. So I would say that the dumpster rental is a little bit more expensive to get into because of the equipment you have to buy to be able to sustain and then be able to kind of offset, your customer base because you're serving a different customer, right? Um, so yeah, I mean the trailer, you can go buy a trailer, set up all that kind of stuff for 18, 20 grand or something like that.
What is
I don't recommend those things because those are usually the cheaper setups. But yeah, we spent a little bit more to get better
and that was
equipment.
the trailer set up with 3 cans.
Yeah,
You can find those from 18 to 25.
yeah.
And I assume the price, you said, inflation around that time. I assume that the prices are a lot higher now than they were during that time.
They are no. I think it just depending on the brand you picked,
Mhm.
right? It's like anything else. You can buy a Ford or you can buy a Mercedes. Like it just depends on what you're looking at. So could you start with that around that price? Yes. It's just you'll see more problems, throughout that first year or two with some of that equipment. So
So you have a trailer that lifts up, right? You can pull cans off of it. You can
mhm.
pull cans back on instead of actually pull them onto trucks, which is, most dumpster companies actually have
Yep.
those. So for somebody who's interested in getting into the dumpster business, who's maybe limited on their budget, maybe can't get a loan, do you suggest that they get a trailer with cans, kind of like the setup that you had when you started?
Yeah, I mean, if you're limited on cash, I mean that's the way to go. Like if you do have the cash to go get the trucks with all that other stuff, you know, I would say it's a great idea. Put the money into it. It's just at that time I felt like I was going to do multiple different things in the business, that I wasn't just going to do dumpster rentals. And so that's why I decided to go there, because I could be a little bit more hybrid in our business plan. And so we kind of took that direction. That's why we got just the normal, truck and trailer combo.
Okay. So you wanted to get into the dumpster business. Was there any other businesses that were on your radar at that time?
Initially I thought that that's what all I wanted to do. I think and then as I kind of continued on, like I said, especially with the dumpster rental stuff, when I wasn't really doing that much, I was like, okay, well, I need to find other ways to do things. So, got into lawn service. We started doing pressure washing. We started doing junk removal. We started doing everything we possibly can to try to earn people's business and get our name out. Because at that time, like again, it was just hard for us. So we done a multiple different things. But like yeah, in the beginning, yeah, it didn't interest me. But now it makes more sense, right, for us.
So you've scaled your business, quite well, really fast as well. And you always hear that saying out there that the riches are in the niches, but you've kind of chose dumpsters, junk removal, pressure washing, anything that demolition, anything that really you can make money on. For somebody who's in maybe a business where they're in a moving business or junk removal or one niche, and they see the opportunities outside their business of getting into other things or helping their customers with different businesses, do you think that they should go target these other types of businesses, or do you think that they should scale up their business first before they get into those other ones?
I think I was just in a different place at that time. I think if I would maybe go back and do it differently, yeah, I would focus on one first and then start branching out. I just didn't have that choice because again, the one thing that I was trying to build up, I couldn't, and I just wasn't going anywhere. So I didn't know how to close deals. I didn't know how to find leads. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And so then I just started branching out with all these other things. And then like I said, everything just kind of came together all at once. And at one point it was too much. And I had to start figuring out how do I not so much offload, but basically delegate it down to some of the team members to be able to manage it a little bit better.
And how many people do you have on your team right now?
So we roughly have, I would say, five guys that basically are there whenever I need them, and then we got up to about 10 that we have. The other five are kind of like part time. Will come in. They don't really they really don't want the I guess responsibility of being that guy we call on the full time, but they're there when for the most part when we need them.
And people complain about employees every single day. You hear it all the time, and that prevents them from scaling their business. How have you had, we'll call it, I wouldn't say luck, but how have you had this opportunity to be able to find great guys, within your business to help, scale the business, and also you don't have to worry about what they're doing. They already know what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think I kind of pride myself a little bit on the background that I have in the military, and then I also do a lot of HR on the civilian side. I'm still a DoD civilian, and I do a lot of HR. So I've learned a lot about people, and making sure that hiring the right people it affects operations and businesses and everything that you do, right? Um, so I think for me, trying to find the right employees is very important. But I don't think that there's a blueprint to do that, right? It's just, you have to be able to empower those folks within the organization to make decisions, right? You have to treat them as if they are you yourself there on the floor, right? So training them, telling those things, and then basically laying out, where do you see the organization, and then seeing if they feel like they want to fit themselves into there, right? Because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of investment. It costs a lot of money to train these employees on the skills and stuff that you have, and then just to let them go. So you do everything you possibly can once you find a good employee to try to keep them, right? But I think that, like for me, man, I've been, I can't say lucky, just because I've had good leaders. I've had bad leaders, in the military. So much like that on the civilian side, you have bad employees and you have good employees, right? And you kind of know characteristics, things like that are going to work and what's not going to work, before those things actually happen. So, man, I've been blessed with the team that is there, and I can tell you that I don't have anybody that's a part of the team that I don't feel can take my job. And I'm not afraid of that. It's just I teach them to do those things, and I feel like I've accepted them as part of the team because they're the ones that are going to help us grow, together. So
Right. Being in the military, also being an entrepreneur, you've seen good leaders, you've seen bad leaders. What, in your opinion, makes a really good leader? What are some of those characteristics that you like to see in a good leader?
so be no do. That's kind of what our saying is in the military, right? Be the example, know the example, and then do the example, right? So not only do my team members know, they've all seen me out there, right? They've seen me mow, they've seen me pressure wash, they've seen me do junk removals, they've seen me do dumpster link. So setting the example with those folks to show them, I guess, the standard, right? And know that, hey, the boss is out there doing it. You know, why can't we do it, kind of thing, right? And I think that we've created a very good atmosphere to work in. You will go there and you'll think we're all fighting, but we are just having a great time, influencing each other, kind of trash talking back and forth to push
It's a
each
good
other.
culture.
Yeah. So yeah, and we've created those things, right? And yeah, I can't say enough about the guys that we work with. They know who they are. They've done great, and like I said, at the end of the day, those I hope that they continue to grow with us and help us build.
Once you start hiring employees, the boss always gets a bad reputation at some point because the employees think, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing all the work for this person and they're sitting behind the desk all day long, while I'm making all the money." To where we were talking about this a little bit last night at dinner. I actually have two stories. One was my employees, they looked at me being the guy in the office all the time,
Hmm.
shooting social media content, being in
Yeah.
front of the camera, right? While they're out there, in the rain, taking down a shed. And I remember one day they were taking down a shed in the backyard, and those usually take, we'll say 1 to 3 hours.
Hmm.
There's a wooden shed, kind of like the ones you see outside of Home Depot, and it's pouring down rain. And they're like, "Oh, we got to go do this job." They're kind of complaining. And I wanted them to know that, like, I'll get the job done. I don't need you guys complaining. I don't need you guys thinking that I'm not willing to do the work as well. So I drove all the way out there while it was pouring down rain. I started kicking the walls down. I was trying to make a statement.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And they didn't think I was going to show up. The second thing was we landed this house clear out. This is kind of when I got off the job site. I'm wearing khaki pants on the job site. I'm talking to the customers. I'm doing all the fun parts. And all these employees are doing all the work. The people on my team are doing all the work. And I didn't want them to get a bad taste in their mouth about me not willing to do the labor anymore
Hmm.
because I was already off the job site. So I see this toilet that's sitting on the ground, right? I'm thinking of what items that I can grab to go take to the truck that isn't just a cardboard box. And I see this toilet that's already, removed, and I pick it up and water's flying everywhere. I'm walking it outside, and every step I would take, water of this toilet's going all over my hands and stuff like that. I went to set it on the concrete or the driveway before I throw it in the trailer, and it was just like I barely tapped it on the ground and it broke. And then the porcelain, I think is what they call it, went straight in my leg, and I get 12 stitches. And I'm like, it's a good example to show them right there. I'm not scared to do the work or get hurt. So,
Yeah.
but
No, I think transparency is big, man. I mean, much or like what the example you use right there, where they, some employees may see it as like, well, hey, I'm only getting, 10% of this job or whatever it may be, right? Whatever the percentage is. I have broke it down to some of the team members, basically. Actually, all the team members know what the job is, what they're getting out of it, what's going back to the company, and they see it, right? To this day, I haven't taken a dollar from the company. My goal, because again, I work full time. Do have a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and then I do this another probably 40 hours after work. Um, where basically I dedicate maybe 8 to 10 hours a day after work doing this stuff. But basically, what they all understand is that it's not about today, it's about tomorrow, right? So yes, we're making this much money, but if I want to get to X amount of dollars, we have to have this inventory. We got to have the equipment. We got to have this many jobs, like all these other things that we have to focus on to do those things, right? And then they understand their piece, right? And we call it a tax, right? I mean, it's like the lawn service. Well, yes, you're cutting grass, and maybe you're not making the volume is there, but we're not making as much on those type of jobs or whatever. But the volume's there, but you got to account for fuel, you got to account for wear and tear of the equipment, like all these other things that you're not really accounting for. So yes, the company is getting this much money and you're only getting this much, but what happens when something happens to some of the equipment? Are you going to pay for it, or is the company got to pay for it? And they understand that stuff, and I'm very understanding to accidents happening and all that stuff, but they also understand that now the company is set back that much more because we don't have those dollars because we had to invest it back into
Right.
fixing things or whatever. So transparency is big, I think, as far as starting out. I think at one point it'll get to where, you know, they won't see as many of the numbers as it is. But as right now, growing with the right team that's what's important for me. Because I try to surround myself around smarter people. I want to be the dumbest in the room, because if I haven't done that, we haven't hired the right people, right? And yeah, I mean, so they consider me the boss. I tell them not to call me the boss, but at the end of the day, like, we're all team members. Like, yeah, your success is my success is your success, and at the end of the day, like, if you want to be a part of this organization and get us to here, like, we're gonna get there together, not by myself. So I understand that too.
Right, right. Yeah, all they see in junk removal, at least, oftentimes the team itself that is on the job site is actually bidding the jobs to where they might say 5 grand, right? And they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. To where they look at all this money that's actually coming into the business, and it's hard for them to see those other expenses that are kind of hidden within the business, to where they think that you're making a ton of money when maybe you're not.
Yep.
There was times where I had to step, like when we got to those points where maybe they thought that I was just absolutely crushing it. I remember one month I showed them like a P&L for the month, and I was like, I lost $6,000 this month. You guys think that I crushed it and I'm getting rich and this and that. I lost $6,000. The reason why is because we wrecked the truck, maybe it was trucks breaking down. There was always something that is happening. And, my team itself, I had 2 really good guys on my team, and I think they started to think, how much money I was making within my business.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand those hidden expenses within the company. And now that they own the actual business, they're like, man, Kyle, I have a lot more respect for you now because I actually see those expenses. Truck breaks down, 5 grand. Maybe it's got to wait 2 weeks just to get in the shop, to where you can't even, maybe it takes a month just to get that one truck back, to where you can't make money with it. There's it's a constant battle. It's a constant roller coaster as well.
Yeah, no, we see it all the time, and like I said, I think that's helped me keep some of the people a lot longer than maybe I expected, and it's crazy, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this too. I've gotten a lot of help from people that I less expected to get the help from, and then the people that I felt I would get help from weren't there, and it's crazy that you say, like I said, I've just kind of blessed with the opportunity that I've had to get the people that are there, that'll show up and ready to grind. They don't complain, maybe of the smell every now and then, but yeah, because we get some dirty jobs sometimes, but I mean, they're there, and like I said, they're a part of the team, and I feel like if I take care of them, they're going to take care of me, and the business is going to continue to grow.
What was like the dirtiest job that you've ever done with junk removal or demo dumpsters?
Man, for me, so we had this, and it was kind of a sad story, but we had this junk removal where this guy was a hoarder, right? And he had, I mean, of course, it had rat feces all over the place. He had animals. there wasn't a working restroom there, so there's possibly human feces there also too. I don't know, but this guy basically had like a very small path through some of these things, and the walls, everything was just kind of stacked up with all sorts of stuff. Um, yeah, that was a big job. Took us 3.5 days to get in and out of there. And like I said, this guy was a veteran, and lost his wife, and then basically after that he was just kind of done with life or whatever. So kind of a sad story, but we were able to kind of get in there and get everything cleaned out. That gentleman is doing a little bit better. We had an organization that went there and helped him out and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like a good kind of why we started the things that we do now. It seemed like, yeah, in the beginning it was about business. Now it's more about serving the people that we were able to go serve, and we've had a lot of good stories like that. And we always, sometimes, we'll do well, and then sometimes we don't do well at all. But the ones that we don't do well, we're okay with, because a lot of the times they're the people that need it the most, and we're happy to go in there and help
Good
them.
karma.
Yeah, and it's all worked out. It seems like, we take care of those folks, and then we got 10 other jobs because of it, so it's been good.
I've seen every single job that you can possibly imagine. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, here in St. Louis, there's houses that I never even thought that existed out here that your neighbor, like just the inside of the house alone, or maybe a nice neighborhood. You walk in that house, it could be the craziest thing you've ever seen. I mean, we've seen squatters in houses. We've seen, you know, trash bags full of dog poop in the basement. We've seen bullet holes. I remember we showed up to this one property, and it was on Alabama Street in St. Louis. And we get there and we walk in. It's kind of one of those places where you're looking at the ground because you're scared of what you're going to step on. There's drugs everywhere.
Yeah.
That house, they were tapping into the neighbor's electric. Somehow they rigged it to where they were tapping into the neighbor's electric, so they weren't paying for it. They had electric. And there were cars in the front yard. There were cars in the side yard. There was like all this stuff, trailers. I mean, just it was a crazy hoarder situation. The cars that were in the yard had they were all, the glass was all broken out. They were like 1960s cars. It looked like a movie, and there were probably 50 bullet holes through the front door. And I'm like, I cannot do this job for any price. And it's almost hard to say, hey, like, I'm not going to do this job for any price. And the homeowner, right, who's probably been a landlord at that, that home for years and years, it's so hard to tell that person, like, hey, it's going to be $1 million, But I remember it's so hard for me to say, like, not say a price, but I always say, hey, for me to actually do this job, it's going to be X amount. And it's usually an outrageous price where they have to do it themselves. But I don't want to put my team in, I guess, in trouble at times where, these people who used to live in these homes come back to take all their stuff, and who's taking it, right? The employees are going to throw all their stuff away, and then it creates a bigger scene than ever before.
Yeah, no, that was kind of much like that story. There was two stories of that, but the one we just got off of, yeah, that guy was allowed to go back and kind of sip through the stuff. So we would basically put stuff in the dumpster. The first 2 days were just loading one dumpster, and this thing ended up taking us. I think it was like 16 dumpsters. It took us 15-yard dumpsters.
Wow.
It took us 16 of them. But the first day and a half, it was him going in there. We would load the stuff up, and then he would take stuff back out of the dumpster, and it was just chaos. It was just we couldn't do our job, right? The other one was these guys had a very young couple had invested in this house, and so I guess the parents died, left it to the family. They sadly were drug addicts, and so eventually they stopped paying tax or whatever, and then they lost the house. Well, by law they're able to go back in there and get their stuff or whatever. So the new homeowners grabbed their stuff, they bagged it all nicely, they put it outside, and then overnight those people, and I guess their friends, went through all those bags, tore it all up, and the stuff was everywhere. It was like everything they had done for the last freaking week, they just undid for them. And then, sad to say, the code enforcement came out the next day and said, you got to the end of the week to do this, or we're gonna start finding you. And so, we ended up coming in and helping those guys get rid of
Right.
that stuff. So
I have one of the craziest stories, and I'm curious to hear what you would do in this situation. So I send my team to a house clear out. I think we had 2 trucks there, 4 employees there, and it's in St. Louis as well. They're doing a house clear out, and it was an eviction, I believe. So they got kicked out of the property. All their stuff was left there. So I get a call from my employees one day, and they're freaking out. Oh my gosh, this guy said he was going to shoot us. Oh my gosh, there he is, there he is, there he is. That's exactly how the conversation was. And then it was just like, I'm like, what is going on? Why are you guys driving back to the job site?
yeah.
They said they had to call the cops. They explained the story. They're clearing out this property, and they walk out to go throw the stuff on the truck. And some guys on the truck going through all the stuff. And they're like, hey, man, we need you to get off the truck. And he's like, oh, yeah. Just kind of like saying, yeah. But he's continuing to go through all of his stuff. And they didn't know who this guy was. They're like, man, you need to get off this truck. I will call the cops if you don't get off the truck. And it was the guy who actually lived at that property before. I think it was maybe the son or something like that. So he's going through all the stuff, and we don't want the liability of him being on the truck. And he said, like, I don't even want to say this on camera, but he said, oh, how about I shoot you guys right now, is exactly what he said. And all the employees were like, just kind of walked away, and we're kind of like freaking out a little bit. And they were like, man, you need to get off this truck, is what they kept saying. And then the guy went to go get his gun, apparently. Who knows what he was doing. And they hurry up, hopped in the box truck. They left the door wide open to the property. My employee left his phone on the countertop.
Oh,
and
no.
basically they drove away. The guy's like, oh my gosh, I left my phone in this house. And they call the cops, of course. And the cops in St. Louis, it'll take them an hour to get there, if they care. And, I think they showed up after an hour and a half. They call the customer, they tell them the situation, she heads out there, feels bad and everything. And they saw the guy run back in the house, and he was taking stuff out of the house. And then he stole my employee's phone to where he was phoneless at that point. And then they never even caught the guy or anything like that. And it was just a crazy story. What do you think you would do if you walk out of a job site and some guy's on the truck like that?
Yeah, I don't know much of probably how they handle the situation, man. At that point, I would just say, hey, call the cops, call the landlord, whoever it is, and let's get them involved, because that's beyond what we've experienced at this point. But yeah, I guess we kind of need to create some TTPs in that, right? Some standard operating procedures that will kind of offset that, because you don't think about those things, but yeah, they can happen, right? So
I've got so many other stories just like that.
yeah,
I mean,
no, I think having law enforcement involved, even though if it may take an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's the safest thing to do, because you don't want to put your employees at risk or whatever, because the job's not worth that, right?
I've got one more story, and I'll leave it here. And it was I think our first demo job, and this house caught on fire, right? The customer never told us how the property got caught on fire until we actually did the property. And he said the word Molotov cocktails. And I was like thinking, what is that? And I remember playing Call of Duty, I think, and they had Molotov cocktails where it's the bottle, right? And you catch it on fire. They threw a Molotov cocktail through the window, caught the whole property on fire. And then we had to go in there and actually do a full gut job and remove all the junk and stuff like that. And it was a really bad part of St. Louis, really bad. You can buy properties for $5,000 in this area. That house was probably worth $5,000. And we're doing this job, and I'm just so worried that somebody's going to come back to this property because of what already happened, And we were finding like all this crazy stuff on the job site as well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're definitely coming back. And the homeowner, he wanted to clean the floors or something like that. And yeah, he wanted to clean the carpet that was in there because it wasn't too bad. So I refer my friend who cleans carpets for a living, and he lands the job. We clear the property out. And as soon as we left, the people who used to live there showed up to the property, and they were trying to like blow the door down to like actually get in there and, hey, where's my stuff at? We were the ones who took it away, but it looked like it was him, since he was cleaning the carpets, and it was just a whole bad situation.
Jeez.
But luckily we weren't there. Poor guy. So, so
Yeah.
you're okay. So you're in lawn care. You're in all these other things. Let's get into the lawn care side of things. How many yards do you have right now?
So we kind of service. So we got about 22 residential, and then probably anywhere upwards between 2 to 250. I would say commercial properties, right? So we have a home builder that we service, and we're their lawn. So anytime they have houses that complete, or they have an open area that they're getting ready to build in, we go in there and cut. So it just kind of fluctuates depending on how many they're building at that time and stuff like that. So yeah, we've stayed pretty busy up until Texas stopped having any rain for the last, I don't know, was it like 3 months? We finally just got some, and then so now we're back to cutting a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I was
But
just
yeah.
gonna ask a dumb question of like if it's kind of a seasonal thing, because here in Missouri, obviously it snows and
Yeah.
you don't get your grass cut or anything like that. But
Yeah, no, I mean, so grass grows, I would say, it just slows down during the wintertime, but not probably to the effect, because I mean, in the summertime, you're if you're not cutting it twice a week, you're cutting it once a week. I mean, that's how fast grass is growing when rain does come in Texas. But like in the wintertime, you'll go to like three every 3 weeks or something like that. So I mean, it's we don't get snow every 10 years, but other than that, like we don't get snow, and the snow doesn't even last that long anyway. But
how do you like the lawn mowing business?
that's kind of, it was kind of like my peacetime in the beginning, right? It was I always told people, like, hey, like if you see me out there cutting grass and it looks like I'm having a Forrest Gump moment, like in the video where he's just kind of sitting there riding along, I said, just mind your business, because I'm at peace.
Hmm.
I enjoy it. There's just some satisfaction of going to a yard where it's not really nicely edged up and all that kind of stuff, and getting it cleaned up. But what I have found through that is, a lot of the times when we do residentials, it always leads to something else, right? I don't have a residential customer that hasn't needed junk removal or a dumpster rental. So like in turn, if I go there to drop off a dumpster, we're asking them, do they need grass cut? And that's kind of one of the things that I saw, especially with some of the investors that would take some of these houses on. They'd have overgrown grass or whatever, and like, hey, well, we'll come out and cut it. You know what I mean? And at the time, I didn't have the equipment, so I didn't offer it in the very beginning. But then, kind of gave me an excuse to kind of buy some commercial grade equipment and stuff like that. So
And that's a great way to increase the LTV or lifetime value of a customer
yeah,
is by offering that one customer that you have more than one service, because they might need junk removed today and they
yeah,
might not need it for another year. But do they need their yard cut? Do they need their house pressure washed? Do they need, trash can cleaning? Do they need cleaning? Whatever it is.
yeah.
So once you get that client in the door and you can, retain that client by offering them other services, you can end up making a lot more money than you would if you just offered that one service.
Yeah, and yeah, that's definitely a good point. Like I said, I think our success has been based off of what can we offer you? Like, what is it's not just here's the dumpster, see you later kind of thing. Like, maybe some of the other organizations are, right. And maybe that's all a customer needs at that time. But what we have found, and I'm sure that just everyone's busy today. They're busy, and time is so valuable to some people, and so the convenience of having a company that can offer multiple services for you, or at least find the subject matter experts to get that job done, it helps. And like I said, we've had a lot of good reviews and a lot of good callbacks, and like you said, having multi customers. Like if you go into my database now, you'll see customers and they don't just have one invoice. There's very rare that they only have one invoice with us. It's multiple ones.
Cool, man. Um, so you're doing pressure washing as well. Like what made you want to get into that side as well? Did the customer just come to you and say, hey, do you guys pressure wash houses as well?
No, I mean it was just another job that we came across. We had went there. We had mowed the grass. They were doing some spring cleaning, and then I'd seen a bunch. So in Texas, a lot of the what happens is, because the humidity is so bad there, it'll like, you wake up and there's humidity all over all your stuff, right? And so that creates a lot of not mold, but algae and stuff like that kind of grows on the side of the houses and stuff like that. So So there's a lot of houses, in the South Texas area that are in need of that. So we just go in there and, like I said, we'll see those houses and we'll do it. And again, I feel like it's a not really an effortless task. I mean, because if you got the right chemicals and you train them right, like to where they don't damage the houses, it's a pretty easy job to go in and go out.
Have you ever thought of starting a YouTube channel showing everyone what the satisfying parts of, junk removal, demolition, dumpsters, I mean, pressure washing, lawn care, that side of things?
Not yet. I know I've talked with my partner uh, about kind of how do we grow this thing, because it's always how do we get better? How do we get better than yesterday? And we started doing a little bit more videotaping, a little bit more photos and things like that, because we want to share what we do. Because if customers see that we do those things, then we do it. Because I'm not going to say that I made a huge mistake, but when it came to branding and naming, at the time it was just dumpster rentals, right? So when we're doing lead generations through Thumbtack or whatever, like they'll come across that, oh, Corpus Dumpster Rentals does lawn service, and we've had that
Right.
with customers like, well, we saw your name and we didn't think you did lawn service. I said, yeah, I mean, it's just one part of the thing that we do, but yeah, we do other things too. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick. I rarely have to do this, and
Yeah.
then we'll pick right back up. All right. Sorry about that, Brian. I had to go to the bathroom, but I want to share a funny story. I went on the Ryan Pineda podcast, the one that you saw me on, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't watch the full podcast, so I don't know how it looked. I don't know if, they clipped this out or what, but I remember I drank so much water before. Plus, usually people will give you a water before you get on a podcast. And I had to go to the bathroom so bad. I'm crossing my legs back and forth. I'm like, man, do I tell him I got to go really quick? Is that allowed? And I just keep going. And I can't stop thinking about it, right? And at the end, I was like, oh man, I got to go to the bathroom so bad. Is that a big issue? But it was just a funny joke. I don't know if you saw that on the podcast or not.
No, I didn't. I didn't
So,
notice it. No, it was pretty good. Like I said, I just got excited when I'd seen there, and like I said, everything kind of happens for a reason. I felt like I came across that YouTube thing, and it's led us to here today. It's kind of like what I said in the beginning. It's just humbling to be able to see how things kind of play out, man. And it's a good example of things take time, right? I mean, this is literally a year of business this month for us, right? And the journey's just been tremendous. Like it's been great, and there's so many people to thank, like yourself. Dumpster rental systems. My friend Jeremy that kind of got me even started, because if he didn't even get me pushed in the direction of trying to start my own business, it wouldn't have led me to starting. It wouldn't have led me to meeting you. It wouldn't have led me to being here. And then creating the team that we have, and the success that we have. And there's again, even the people that have worked with me, that no longer work with me, they're still a part of the journey and the success that we're at today. And I'm thankful for all of it. Right. So yeah.
there's a lot of people that struggle in business, and you see this firsthand. You struggled yourself, maybe you still struggle today, but you're doing greater than most of the average businesses out there, will say. You've seen fast growth and they haven't. What do you think the difference between somebody who is one of these junk removal companies or lawn care companies who are doing 10 to 15, maybe 20,000 a month, and they just can't figure out how to scale to maybe 40, $50,000 months?
Yeah, I would say look at your operation, like step back or have somebody from the outside looking into it, and find some efficiencies, right? I think that's kind of what has kind of messed with us a little bit. Because at first I thought it was inventory, but no, it wasn't really inventory. It was just the efficiencies and the operations that we were kind of running at the time, right? Why I wasn't having dumpsters available to go do jobs, do those things, right? Um, and like you said, I mean, at the time, it's so easy to just quit, right? But for me, in everything that I've done, not just only on my civilian career and my military career, even my family, like the just learning the resiliency of being able to get over those things, and also understanding that there's worse things going on in the world, man. Just there really is. And I've seen those things. There's people that are worse off than us, and if you just focus on the things that help you progress, you're operating things, getting out there, trying to find those leads, shaking hands, high fiving, talking to folks, getting on Facebook, social media, doing all those things that, again, at least put your name up on there, because much like you've expressed in a lot of your mentorship, is they may not need you today, but at least they know you're there for tomorrow, right? So, struggling businesses, it's going to happen, and I know we're gonna, we've done well at least the last 5 months, and, compared to the ones before. But if you would ask me, hey, were you expecting to be at this number of net right now at this point in time? And I would tell you no. It wasn't even something that I was thinking of. I was very closed-minded, and much like you always tell us, like, stop being so closed-minded. Be open. Like, if you want to make 7 figures, well, you need to figure out how to get to 7 figures. You need to write out a plan. You need to do all those things, right? And I've shared how we're going to get there with you.
I saw a video today. I want to stop you there before
Yep.
I forget this. Saw a video today. I don't know exactly who the guy is. I know he's seen a lot of success in his journey. And he said creating a successful business or making a lot of money doesn't take a lot of time, but becoming the person that you need to become in order to create that success takes a long time.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that hits hard.
No, and it does. I kind of pride ourselves on our guys. Like, we really bend over backwards to accommodate to customers, because we all understand that they have different needs. They all have different time frames, like things like that. I'll share a story with you where we had to go clean up a demo job, and it was quite a sad story, because this house was like one of those generation houses, right? And what I mean by that was, like, it was passed down by generation to generation, right? And so it had finally met its life, right? Like, there was no more reviving this house. It was just time for it to go. Well, the city basically gave them an ultimatum, like, hey, you fix the house or you remove it, and then this is your timeline or whatever. So this guy had called all these demo companies, and then they all said they couldn't meet the time frame. We ended up being the folks that they hired, got out there, and the whole time our team had seen the lady next door just standing out there watching us kind of take apart this house and kind of clean it up and stuff like that. They had like a 7-day turnaround, or they were going to start getting like $2,000 fines or something like that. We got it done in a day and we were out. But this lady kind of watched us and just kind of observed us doing it, and we didn't think nothing of it or whatever. Well, during one of our breaks, our one of our team members had gone over there and spoke with them, and she was kind of saying, like, that was the house I grew up in. We're very sad to see it go, but we're glad that we will at least be able to keep the property to pass on to the next generation or whatever, right? And for us, it really fulfilled, who we want to be, right? Like, we want to be that company that people look to not just go there for the numbers, right? Or for the money. Like, we are there to help them, so that way they can see the future of whatever they're going to do with their property or their house or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I mean, every story is different, but yeah, that was probably like one of the most fulfilling jobs that we've had recently.
Lesson to be learned: don't be greedy. Focus on giving back, and things are going to come in return.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like there's been so many different parts of my business where I've been, I've wanted to charge more, and then I've wanted to charge less, and you really have to find that sweet spot,
Yeah.
to where the customer doesn't feel like they're getting taken advantage of. Like, the value has to be there for the actual value that you're getting in return. Otherwise, you're just not going to retain those clients.
Yeah, closing some of those deals have gotten interesting. Much of what we were able to learn in the academy and stuff kind of helped us do that. We've gotten better at doing it, but again, I think transparency across the board is important. Like explaining sometimes some of the expenses or the labor that it's going to take to get those things done. Because much of what this does, it doesn't take rocket science to do it, but it does take some efficiency to do it quickly and to get out of there and get to the next job. And I think that's what we've kind of learned over the last year is how we get in and out a little bit quicker. Cause it's always, we're trying to get out of there because again, people, as much as they want the stuff gone, they want it gone like yesterday for the most part. When they, at least those are the customers that we get. And I always say that too. I'm like, hey, so how soon are you looking at getting this done? Is yesterday? And they laugh because I mean, I already know the answer before they even ask it. It's, they're typically calling a company like you because that's what they want to do. So you just got to be ready to jump in. And that's kind of like our slogan to always be ready so you don't have to get ready. You know what I mean? And our team members kind of understand that we work in a sense of, being those firefighters, those guys need that stuff done quick because they want to do something else.
So the people who are stuck at 10, 15,000 a month in their business, I think, the problem and the difference I see between, you and them, for example, is everyone wants to get rich tomorrow, and it's just not practical. You might have a great month the first month or the second month because you're creating some new ecosystem where your friends and family are going to see your business. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot of time and a strong mindset to be able to build something big. And everyone's so focused on the numbers, and everyone thinks best case scenario of scaling this business, and they're going to get rich tomorrow. And that's just not going to happen. And it takes a long time. If you look at any really successful business out there, the Amazon, maybe some local businesses in your area, they haven't seen the growth in, 1 year or 3 years of them starting a company. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've been in business for 20 years, 40 years, right? And where are they at right now? And you almost have to ask yourself, hey, am I willing to work 25 years to be able to get to $15 million a year, $20 million a year? You have to ask yourself those questions, and most people aren't willing to put that time in or the effort in because they expect things in return tomorrow.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest question that any person that's going to do some owner-operated business or whatever is, what are you willing to give up? That's I think the most important question, right? What are you willing to give up to be successful, right? And if you're not willing to sacrifice and do those things, you're not gonna get there. You can sit here and work Monday through Friday all day, but somebody's going to be out there Saturday and Sunday taking the rest of your customers away from you. So and that's kind of what we've seen and doing it and trying to balance that has been kind of a challenge for us in this year. And me and my partner have kind of tried to figure out how do we balance that, right? Really, honestly, I mean, depending on the fields or studies that you're trying to do, I mean, sometimes there isn't a balance, right? It's sometimes you have to go grind, you have to go do those things. And I will tell you what, I have a very understanding wife. She understands that I'm just built a little different. I will go and work the dog crap out of myself and continue to work. Maybe take a little nap in between and then get back to work again, just because that's I feel like, much of my success in the military, on my civilian career, and then now much of our success in the thing has been driven off of that, right? What am I willing to give up?
And most people struggle, and I've struggled with this as well, as we work our tail off right now. We're putting in the work so we don't have to in the future. Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that. But if you look at most people, they're going to work from 15 years old to 65, 70 years old. Maybe they never even retire, and that's what their life looks like. To where the people who are putting in the work now, whenever that time is, you put the work in now, and just putting the work in for 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 20 years, you can set yourself up for life to where you can enjoy the later on time in life, to where you might have to sacrifice that time early to be able to get, be able to relax and hang out with your family even more, in the future.
Yeah. And maybe a lot of people will argue this thing, but the traditional way of life just isn't like the direction or whatever, what was preached to us. I'm a millennial, so much of like, hey, go to college, get the 9 to 5 job, make X amount of money, and you're gonna live great in retirement. But I see, folks that are in that retirement age group, and they're just not ready to retire. It's just like we live in a different time, and that was kind of what led me to do it. Because if you look at where I'm at now, I'm not 40 yet, but I'm getting close. But if I look at my life now, I've done the traditional things, right? And do I feel like that if I just when I decide to retire that I'll be okay? Yeah, I think so. I believe so. But I don't want my kids and their kids to go through what I've had to go through. I want to be the one, right? I want to be the one to break that cycle of, hey, just go work your butt off, just do the traditional job, and then the next family or generation's got to do the same thing, right? I want to be able to create something to leave behind for them to carry on, so they don't have to do the things that I do. And me and my wife both come from very less fortunate backgrounds. And we didn't come from a lot of money. We didn't have to do any of that stuff. And that's what I love about my partner. We've been together 2 decades now, and she was there when I had nothing, and she's still standing and supporting me in a very crazy way. And I think we talked about it at dinner last night, but she knows how to fuel me to drive on. And
I told you so.
yeah. And then and in reverse, I'm trying to do the opposite of trying to, again, prove myself right in doing those things. So, and yeah, I mean, yeah, in the beginning, we talked about this last night, she was much of hesitant on spending our life savings on getting this thing started, because it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money, and it was something that we worked really hard for together, and sacrificed a lot of time away from each other. We missed a lot of anniversaries, birthdays, like all those kind of things, being in the military and stuff like that. And so, yeah, she hesitated quite a bit, but I've never backed down from a challenge, and if there's a way I figure it out, I will work to the end to try to figure it out.
Where do you plan on taking things from here, in the next 5, 10, years or so with your business, so me and the audience can hold you accountable?
So much, like I said, to me, again, I want to find that balance. We haven't figured it out yet. And I don't know if we ever will. And then when I say by the balance of work-life balance, right? Because just me and my partner are both, we're built very much the same. And that's the scary thing about this business right now, is that you have two very mind-liked individuals that have partnered up, and like, we're going to work to make this thing successful, right? But much like we've shared with each other, like, we still want to have that family time, because what we both have realized, because he was in the military too, much what we've realized over the years is, there's not a dollar in the world that's going to buy back time, right? And you can sit here and you can make tons of money. So if I sit here and tell you I want to be, an 8-figure company or a 7-figure company within the next 3 years or whatever, in my mind, I already know what it's going to take to get there. But again, am I willing to give up those things, right? Am I willing to give up all that extra time and stuff? And so at some point, I'm going to have to find that balance. Do I want to be a 7-figure company? Sure, absolutely. But I want to just, for me and him both, like, we want to be in the position to help people. I want to be able to help family members. I want to be able to help, our community. I want to be able to do those things, right? And me and him, like I said, are very like-minded. We are very giving to the fact that, like, we will help anybody and everybody out that we possibly can. So yeah, if the audience is going to hold me accountable, it's the goal right now is 7 figures in 3 years.
Let's go.
So we're going to get there, but yeah, I think in that 3 years we're going to find a work-life balance. So I think we'll grow inventory. I think we'll grow team members. And that's kind of where we want to get by the 3-year mark.
That's cool, man. What is the best advice that you could give the audience who's watching this? Somebody who is maybe an entrepreneur or wants to become an entrepreneur. What advice can you give them that maybe had a great impact on your life?
I say, three things, right? Much what I said is, if you're going to start, what are you willing to give up? I mean, that's number one. If you're not willing to dedicate your time and do the things that are necessary to be successful, you're not going to get there, right? And it sounds like a slogan all day, but at the end of the day, our success isn't driven based off of, you know, the Junk Academy alone, right? Because as much as I sat there and read stuff, if I didn't go do those things, nothing would have happened. Um, so know what you're willing to sacrifice. Yes, there are nights that we're driving home and I see people driving into the clubs, into the bars and all that stuff. Are you those people? Are you the person driving by still working? Number two, consistency. You cannot sit here and do things one day and see them work and then just stop doing them the next day, right? Be consistent. Don't put everything all into one thing. Stay consistent on those things and continue to do those things. And then I would say number three, be resilient. You're gonna have bad days. We've all had them. We've left equipment at the dumps. We've broke our trucks. We've broke our trailers. We've had flat tires. We've lost good deals to someone underbidding. Just stay resilient and understand that there's someone in the world having it worse off than you, and you have to let those things go and move on to the next thing. Because most importantly, when it comes to resiliency, is just the fact of being able to move forward, right? And if you can't get past all the bad things, you're not ever going to move to the good things. Worry about the little things, right? Because when the big things happen, then you'll be fine. So,
Well, Brian, man, I really appreciate you coming out all the way to St. Louis.
yep.
Appreciate, the business that you brought to me, and super glad to have met you, and I'm rooting for you, man.
No, I appreciate it.
Awesome,
Thanks for the
man.
opportunity.
All right, we'll see you guys on the next one.